everyone, and welcome back to the Damage Report. Not just a new day, but a new week and a new era of accountability. No, not at all. But we're here. I'm here. I'm in the studio. And can I just tell, like, I've been giving you updates on the studio, how like now there's this high-pitched droning whining noise that apparently is just permanent. I cannot prove, there's no way I can prove this, but it's darker in this room and there's no reason for that to be true. I don't know what happened, but I feel like the walls and lights are closing in on me.
No, it's darker. It's darker. And there's like a hand reaching out behind you. Is there some?
I didn't do anything and there are lights on, but somehow it is definitely darker in here. What is going, and the ceiling's lower. What the hell?
This is very Stranger Things. This is how it begins.
It is. I actually went to this live Stranger Things event for Valentine's Day. My wife brought me. It was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Didn't feel as scared there as I do at work now. Anyway, Francesca's here. Hey, Francesca, how's it going?
What's going on? Happy Fantastic Monday. Let's do it all again.
Happy Valentine's Day. How was your show yesterday?
So good. We had Eugene Daniels of Politico, who just gave us sort of his thoughts on the impeachment, explained the whole witnesses thing. I know we're gonna get into it. So it was a really good show. Matt Lieb was on, and everyone should listen to the Bitchuation Room podcast.
Awesome, sounds great. And many of you watching probably know I appeared on Ben Dixon's show this morning. That was a lot of fun. We sometimes refer to this show as the morning show, but no, that was really much more of a morning show, although he's on the East Coast, of course. But anyway, lots of exciting stuff going on, including, by the way, a little bit later on, we have the 19th anniversary of TYT being a thing. How exciting is that?
Woo.
We've been around a long time, 19 years. And so later on today, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time at tyt.com/live and Twitch and YouTube and all of that, we're gonna be sort of recounting a little bit of the history of TYT, mostly just having fun times talking. We always plan out a bunch of stuff, and what it ends up being is just reminiscing together, but it's always a ton of fun. I'm gonna be there at that first hour with Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, but we're also gonna be joined by JR and Aaron and Dave and Steve and Ben and Brett and a whole bunch of people who've appeared over the years. So that's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's coming up a little bit later on. As Marcia Fella points out, it's a Turkiversary, everyone. So that should be a lot of fun. Anyway, as was alluded to by Francesca, we got a big hour. We're gonna be talking about what happened over the weekend, both with the witnesses and the eventual end of Trump's trial. I'm like not giving you spoilers because I know a lot of you avoid learning the news so that I can tell you what happened. So thank you for not knowing what happened in that trial. I'm gonna blow your minds, people. But anyway, and then we've got other stuff too. The LAPD is being absolutely terrible. Updates on the pandemic. And then after the show, for our tier 2 and tier 3 members on YouTube, the top 10 things Trump should have been impeached and convicted over that he was not. So Francesca's gonna be joining me for that. And it should be a lot of fun. Apparently, Francesca's got thoughts, and I'm here for it.
Always.
So anyway, with that, Francesca, you want to jump into this thing?
Yes.
Okay, let's do. It's definitely darker. I'm looking at my face. What happened? What happened? Anyway, okay, let's do this thing. We sort of knew that Trump's trial wasn't going to end well. But we hadn't got our hopes up. That was sort of the whole point. And then the Dems went and got our hopes up over the weekend because all this new stuff started to come out that suddenly meant, wait, don't we need to have witnesses to talk about these new revelations? And let me tell you a little bit about the spicy stuff that should have necessitated witnesses. We found out about this phone call between Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump. It was an expletive-laced phone call, apparently, so that's fun. With Kevin McCarthy, while the US Capitol was under attack, talking to Trump about it. And Trump said that the rioters cared more about the election results than McCarthy did, which is an amazing way to describe people who were like hunting his vice president through the halls of Congress while that phone call was going on. He also apparently said originally, it's just Antifa, and McCarthy had to tell him, no, it's not Antifa. And Trump didn't believe that it was Antifa because then he immediately turned to these people care more about the election results. So did he think that Antifa cared more? I don't know. But anyway, McCarthy insisted that the rioters were Trump supporters and begged Trump to call them off because, again, we've all forgotten this, but back at the time, everyone in the country knew that Trump was responsible for this and had to call them off. Many people just conveniently forgot about it between the 6th and today. Anyway, at one point, he said to Trump, this is McCarthy saying, "Who the F do you think you're talking to?" But the thing was, Trump apparently knew who he was talking to. It was McCarthy, who immediately started licking his boot as soon as we moved past the 6th. And so we found out about that. We found out about Michael Vanderveen, one of the Trump attorneys, lying about Trump not knowing about the danger that Pence was under. We've got people who could attest to that. And so Francesca, they did this little vote, and it seemed for about a half an hour that they were going to have witnesses. And I know that we're way past this now, but when it looked like they were gonna be witnesses, what did you think about that? Did you think that that could possibly change the result or that it would matter in some way?
No, officially no. My official stance was it would definitely not change the outcome. It might have altered it a little bit, but not led to an actual conviction. But I was interested, to be honest, I was very curious, and I thought that the week had gone pretty well, and there was really damning evidence that everyone should see probably multiple times. So I didn't feel one way or another. I mean, what is it to me? I wasn't like, oh, well, there goes my week. It didn't matter. I was like, oh, okay, that if they think it's important, then it's important. And sure, I'd love to hear, from people like either Kevin McCarthy himself, because that phone call is insane. Can we understand that phone call is nuts? This is, again, a Trump loyalist. No one can get through to him. No one can get through to him to say, you are maybe doing the wrong thing here, bud. Maybe call off your dogs. What dogs? Yeah. I don't have dogs.
They're Antifa dogs.
They're Antifa dogs. Antifa's got dogs. Talk to them about dogs. Hillary Clinton's got dogs. You want to talk about dogs? No. So this is, it's perfect. And I think one of the other lines of questioning that Susan Collins and Mitt Romney, who ended up voting, to convict, they were asking basically, did the president know that the vice president was in danger before he tweeted out yet another Mike Pence should have done the right thing, quote unquote, even though it's not within the vice president's power to withhold the counting of the electors. So, yeah. and so these are really critical pieces of information. The problem is, I'm not sure if Mike Pence had been killed that day, that any of this would be different. I'm serious about that. You could have definitely gotten a few more senators. I don't know if you could have gotten the full 10 you needed to actually convict.
Yeah, and I know every time we say something like that, and we've said things like that quite a bit, there will be some people who be like, oh, you're being hyperbolic. Or, so I'm being hyperbolic. Francesca's a woman, so many of them would call her hysterical because they can't cloak their misogyny. But the idea would be, you're going too far. But what's the counter proposal to that? What happened that was too far and it really did turn people against him on the right? Some people briefly seem to care when the Billy Bush thing came out, sort of, and it's sort of sad that was kind of the thing that brought us the closest to that. But Trump's all the stuff with Ukraine and everything, they didn't impeach him over that. We got no votes basically except for Mitt Romney. There really is nothing. And so, yeah, we get to speculate about what if they had actually kneecapped Nancy Pelosi, or they left Mike Pence hanging outside of the building. People can say, no, that would break through, and Sean Hannity would take stock of what he had helped to build. No, but you don't know that. You really don't. That everything is contingent. If they'd killed Mike Pence, it would have just been, you'd have more Republicans more sure that it was Antifa that had actually done it. There is an evasion for everything. And now, as of right, sorry, continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm not sure that, look, if we're gonna spend a week per senator working on each one's individual like heart and soul and trying to like I said, morality whisper to them, I'm not sure that's a bad exercise. I'm not saying that even getting 3 more Republicans over to the convict side wouldn't have been worth it, because at least maybe then we can like have an actual opposition party that doesn't believe in insurrecting, a revolt inside the Capitol building. Right? Like maybe that was worth it. I just I think the calculation was made, and I know we're gonna talk about it, but there was either the calculation that senators are tired and they wanna go home, which I definitely think was part of it. Which is like, no, you have to do your job. That's the point. But also the calculation of, we want to just get things done. We want the Biden administration to move forward with nominations, move forward with the COVID-19 plan. And we know that Republicans, because they are completely bad faith, are going to stretch anything out as long as they can, the witness process out as long as they can, in order to basically deny any kind of aid to the American people, which they already don't believe in, and they already stay up till 4 a.m. trying to introduce amendment after amendment after amendment to try and chip away at that necessary aid. That's true. It's a hard calculation to make. It's hard to know how to get through to these people.
Well, you know what? Let's turn to someone sort of kind of implying that same sort of calculation. So throughout the week of the trial, there were a number of people, the House impeachment managers, some people that they brought forward to speak, who I thought did a pretty good job. Representative Raskin got a lot of credit for much of what he said. That said, he was involved eventually in the decision to not have witnesses. Now he is being asked questions about that, and here is what he had to say about what witnesses could have possibly demonstrated and how it could have been turned against them.
We won that vote. We were going to proceed to do it. And then the Republicans stipulated to allow the evidence to come into the record. Now, you ask about some other people who might have gotten up there and lied. We don't know what Kevin McCarthy would have said. I mean, that was her record of what he was telling people. What he told people was that he had called Trump to say, you got to get us out of this. Hell, these people are here. Trump said, it's Antifa. McCarthy said, no, it's not Antifa, Mr. President, it's your people, you got to get us out of here, to which Trump said something like, well, maybe they just care more about the election than you do, i.e., Trump knew exactly what they were doing. He knew that that mob which he had deployed was there, occupying people's offices and threatening Congress. So it was there for everybody to see. Right. So we could have had 1,000 witnesses, but that could not have overcome the kinds of silly arguments that people like McConnell and Capito are hanging their hats on. They're trying to have it both ways.
Really fast note, if you're watching this later, I want you to go back and take a look at Chuck Todd's face as he's doing this weird pose. I'm gonna ask you a follow-up. It's really annoying. It's really annoying, and I can't believe he still has a job. But anyway, so you're right, I think, Francesca, that some of them just want to move on and do stuff like the COVID bill, and certainly the Republicans would have dragged this out. And I think that Raskin's right that they would have brought a bunch of nonsense, witnesses on. But like, can we just stop for a second and be like, well, then it kind of sucks that, like, for the first time ever, an outgoing president tried to overturn the result in every way that he could until finally deploying a violent mob, and it just doesn't mean anything. It doesn't lead to anything. A couple of Republicans did turn against it. We'll get to that vote. But like, because we have other things to do, or because the Republicans are like so fundamentally operating in bad faith perpetually, that we just got to move on and ignore the fact that this is like a historic thing that just happened that isn't gonna go away. Those crazies are still out there. They want Trump to come back, and as of right now, he can come back. Ugh. America.
It's, if you think about it, obviously, Raskin has a very good point, which is Kevin McCarthy could have got up and completely lied about any kind of phone call, which he apparently was telling multiple people, and he could have lied. And said, no, I didn't say that. I didn't have a call. No, the president understood, right? What then? I think it was almost stronger that it came from secondhand, because these Republicans are such bald-faced liars, and they're such cowards, and they're afraid of their base. They're afraid of the base that they helped create. That is a problem they have. That's a problem they've sicked on the American people. What happened on January 6th, I do believe, even though I'm cynical about the Senate, it is a fundamentally undemocratic institution. I'm not cynical about how much the Sixth tells us about what this country has always been and what we've allowed it to become in the last few decades with the rise of like extremist, right-wing, white supremacist nationalist organizations, like the ways that we've allowed this to fester. And now we're being faced with it. And with the ways we allowed an authoritarian wannabe dictator to basically not dog whistle, but openly call his goons on everybody. And now we have to deal with it. And it's the Republicans' problem, but it's everyone's problem. It's Democrats' problem as well. And so I don't think this is the end of the accounting for the Sixth. I know that there are people who are calling for a full investigation. There needs to be a full investigation. So the problem is like, you don't start by taking down the capo. Like you can't take down the head of the mafia. You don't take down the Godfather first. You gotta go for the little guys, the guys with the horns, the ladies with the piano scarf, piano scarves, piano key scarves, whatever that thing was. But these are the people you go after, and then you slowly chip away. These fools aren't gonna like indict their own. We know that.
Yeah, I know, and I get what you're saying. Although it feels like, isn't that what we did for years with, Cohen and Manafort and Stone and all of them? Like,
yeah,
a lot of them ended up getting pardoned by the capo because we didn't all go all the way through. Yeah. Well, look, we've been dancing around this, so let's talk about what happened over the weekend. Trump got off because, of course, he was going to get off. We sort of knew that. Still had to do this. In the end, a total of 57 senators ended up voting to convict Trump of inciting the insurrection that took place at the US Capitol on January 6th. 57, the majority. But again, that doesn't really count for anything because there's always some higher bar that you need to reach for there to be consequences. And that includes 7 Republicans: Richard Burr, Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, Ben Sasse, and Pat Toomey, which for the record is 2 more than I thought there would be. I don't know if you had sort of guessed or had a hunch, Francesca, but I thought they'd get 5. And so I'm a little bit surprised at Burr, and I mean, I guess Cassidy had sort of implied earlier on that maybe he was a possible, but 57, by far the most ever in a trial like this. I mean, up until last year, it was just Mitt Romney is the only person that had ever voted to convict someone of their party. So this is historically bipartisan, but it's not 67, so Trump gets to go free.
But that's such an important point, what you just mentioned, and is like, that's insane that Romney was the only, Romney gets a place in the history books as the first sitting senator to vote for the conviction of a president of the opposite party. That's insane. Like what that tells you about how broken this country is. And like, I'm sorry, founding fathers, but y'all didn't have it all figured out. Maybe it was when you also owned slaves. But it's like, you set up this tool to hold presidents accountable, but within a 2-party system, which is fundamentally undemocratic, like we're no more partisan or nonpartisan than we were in other impeachments, right? Like this is the most bipartisan impeachment in the history of the United States, which just tells you that impeachment is not a good tool within a 2-party system, and definitely with an unrepresentative Senate, 100 people who do not accurately represent the per capita, like the people, the actual people, right? They represent more land and cows than actual people. And look, cows are some shady MFers, but they probably would have voted to acquit. But I don't know. Did they? The point is like, we need to revisit these systems.
I agree. It's a terrible tool. All of them are terrible tools. Both the tools we have for accountability and those who should be using them. But anyway, we don't have, I don't know what we're supposed to have. Maybe we can have some sort of open conversation about, since none of this works, what should we have? Yeah. But I do want to piggyback onto your unrepresentative thing. This is like, there's nothing I love more, I guess, than reading graphics like this that sort of demonstrate a point, but are completely pointless because it doesn't matter. But the 57 senators who voted to convict Trump represent about 202 million people, while the 43 senators who voted to acquit represent only about 125. In total, the block of senators who voted to convict represent 76.7 million more people than the block who voted not guilty. More votes, by the way, than what Trump got in the election. Whether you know how to round or not, it's more. And that doesn't matter. None of it matters. Nothing matters. But it's crazy. There's always some higher number you need to get. It's always just not quite enough. Even like getting the Senate, not quite enough. Getting 60, not quite enough. That's just the sort of way that it works.
But that's really good that you bring up the graphic. I mean, it is important because it's the ways that, when we start to understand how our systems in this country work against us, how the economic system that we have works against us, it starts to feel less hopeless. And I know that sounds weird, but every time I understand, but true, but it's rather than like people are evil and things are bad. It's like, no, the system is designed for them to like be able to get away with this amount of greed and minority rule. And that allows us at least a path forward. Like, okay, we know what we need to reform. We know what we need to rein in. So for me, I actually feel better when I see that because I'm like, oh, it's not just that everyone's awful. It's that it's all designed not in the favor of democracy.
And to demonstrate your point, that graphic that's below you right now, US Senate acquits Donald Trump 43 to 57. It's good democracy. That's a good democracy right there. Oh God, anyway. Oh, by the way, we were reading that list of the Republicans who voted to convict Donald Trump. Did you notice whose name wasn't on the list? The courageous man who would stand, the last defender of the Republican Party, someone who is willing to stick his neck firmly out of his shell and stand up to Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell was among the senators who voted to acquit him. And that's bad. But his argument for why he went back into hiding in his shell is even worse. So in this statement, he cited the Senate's lack of jurisdiction over impeachment proceedings of a former president as the reason for his vote to acquit. Oh, okay. So as if we couldn't have seen this coming, back when Trump was president, he was like, no, man, we can't do this now. We need to just wait. Like, let's just get to the inauguration and we'll deal with it then. I'm not gonna bring people back. I'm going to block it while he's president. Then as soon as he's not president, oh no, now the Constitution says we can't convict him. Really convenient the way that worked out. But he could do it because again, as we always say,
he's got a plan. Always has a plan. There's always a plan.
It does.
And I know it. It's in my waddle. And it will be revealed to everybody in due time. Am I doing it okay?
Now, voting to acquit is bad.
Yes.
Voting to acquit because of an excuse that you cooked up through your own behavior is worse. But you know what's worst? This statement. If President Trump were still in office, I would have carefully considered whether the House managers proved their specific charge. So he won't even say whether, if he was president, if he would have convicted him. So he won't vote to convict him because of this excuse. But even in a hypothetical situation where the excuse wasn't there, he's not even saying that Trump did it.
Of course
he's not even admitting that. He's admitting nothing. He's giving nothing. Mitch McConnell, who people were like tripping over themselves to give credit to, and we were telling people not to do that, deserves no credit. He is just as cowardly as ever before. He didn't do anything in the end.
Except he did admit that Trump incited a riot. He did. He was.
But he didn't say that the charges were right.
Oh yeah, no, he has no role in holding him accountable. Oh, who is he? But a turtle out of a shell. But yeah, no, he soon after saying that it was unconstitutional and that the Constitution said that he couldn't, that then he was like, but there's no question that Trump incited a riot against the US Capitol. And it's like, cool, great. For your donors, I assume. And check cleared, cha-ching. One interesting thing we talked about on the podcast, the Bitchuation Room, was the idea that Senator Burr, for example, voted to convict, but after, I believe he might have been one of the senators to say that it was not constitutional to impeach a former president or to convict, to have a trial of a former president. But then he was like, but look, the body decided that it was constitutional. So per the body, like I went forward and was an impartial juror in this case because we already passed that hurdle. So that is, talk about like like actually doing your job, being dutiful to the Senate. Like if the Senate decides something, then that's the baseline for how you go forward. You don't get to go skip back a few steps and say, oh no, it was unconstitutional. Y'all already decided and voted as per the procedures, as per democracy, that it is constitutional. So Mitch, again, like he works only for himself. He works only to see, I don't know, a small, just Tiny Tim cry. If Tiny Tim can die at the end, like he does not want to ever not be Ebenezer Scrooge. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And look, you're totally right. I think he would gladly like hold Tiny Tim's head or like the surface of a river. Oh my God, I'm drowning. But anyway, and I think that we're right to call him out. Let's give credit. You tell me, Francesca, how much credit for the 7 who did vote to convict? How much credit do they deserve?
I think a lot, actually. I mean, I think they deserve credit. I do. I absolutely do. I think that this is the step that we need to be taking for the Republican Party to actually show a little bit of leadership. Stop being cowards. They're not just cowards. They're cowards in that they will not stand up for what is morally and like clearly right. But they're also afraid of this base. They're afraid of the base that they also went along with for so many years. And like, I mean, Collins and Murkowski, like, I don't know, Susan Collins, just like, maybe they got their Brett Kavanaugh in, they got their beer drinker, they got their like frat boy into the Supreme Court. So whatever, they're tired.
Yeah, and by the way, I know some people will say, well, they can do this because they know he's not actually gonna get convicted, so it's sort of free, but it's not free in the Republican Party. Multiple of the senators who voted to convict him, Cassidy and I think Burr, were already censured immediately by their state parties. So, and this is gonna hurt them. He's gonna be attacking them. So I do think that they deserve some credit. And like even Murkowski and Collins, who were supposed to be the reasonable Republicans or whatever, who gave them the beer drinker and all that, didn't vote to convict him the first time. So as much as I like to say nothing matters, nothing counts, and that still remains almost entirely true, they voted this time, they didn't vote last time. So, the 6th did have that effect at the very least. It doesn't necessarily matter, but in the history books at the very least, for whatever, that's worth, more voted to convict him this time, so that's something. And by the way, someone said they weren't watching, they were like doing something in the room and they thought we had a video of Mitch McConnell when you did your impersonation. But before we move on, there's just a couple more people that we have to mention, a couple little highlights, or all of these are lowlights before we move on. First, Lindsey Graham, who was never gonna vote to convict Trump, he's just one of the worst people around, was spreading lies throughout this entire process. Here's what he had to say after Trump was acquitted.
The trial record was a complete joke, hearsay upon hearsay, and we've opened Pandora's box to future presidents. And if you use this model, I don't know how Kamala Harris doesn't get impeached if the Republicans take over the House, because she actually bailed out rioters, and one of the rioters went back to the streets and broke somebody's head open. So we've opened Pandora's box here, and I'm sad for the country.
What?
Okay, so because remember his whole thing, like the Trump sending a mob that actually did ransack the place and actually did kill. That's the exact same thing as anyone else doing anything, saying anything. And the one thing they keep saying is, well, Kamala Harris bailed out some people who had protested, so we're gonna assume that was the literal worst people who did any of the protests or riots. So she supports literally anything that happened there, which by the way, still wasn't as bad as the Capitol attack. And that is their counter argument. So now, supposedly, they're going to impeach Kamala Harris when they take over because she bailed out some rioters at a different thing that then didn't go to the Capitol and kill people. That's his actual point. And then he layers on top of that makes him really sad that that's gonna happen. He doesn't like that that's going to happen, even though if it does happen, which it seems madness that it would, you can expect that he's going to be a vigorous participant in the process.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the entire whataboutism around the Black Lives Matter movement was really hard to watch. It was really hard to see a legitimate and justifiable movement about something real, police brutality and the killing of unarmed Black Americans, get dragged into something that was a violent insurrection about something that was not real, which was the supposed stealing of the 2020 election, right? Like, so, and to see those being put on equal footing, which is actually arguably what the Republican senators wanted to see, because it was in the second and third days when they were like, oh yeah, this is the stuff we can get behind. That first day was bad, but ooh, yeah, love this whataboutism. It just shows you the cynicism and the cruelty that Republicans are willing to go to. And let's not forget, like every time someone says Antifa, socialism, BLM, just show them images of the riots in the Capitol. That's it. Like, just please, over and over and over and over and over again. This is not done, but it is very sick to see the lengths that they will go to make a moral equivalence where there is none.
Yeah, exactly. Moral equivalence. There's probably some transition there, but Nancy Pelosi had this to say following what happened over the weekend.
I think our country needs a strong Republican Party. It's very important, and for him to try to have it every which way. But we will be going forward to make sure that this never happens again, in terms of to investigate and evaluate what caused this, and both in terms of the motivation, but also in terms of the security that we have to have as we go forward, recognizing how inflaming even some of our elected officials can be.
Okay, so we'll turn to the investigation, all of that, whatever. But first of all, again, we need to have a strong Republican Party. What do you think about that, Francesca?
Excuse me, get all choked up. Sadly, I agree with Nancy Pelosi. Look, I've never been the person who's like,
sad.
It's so sad. It's very difficult. First it's like all of the ice cream in my fridge, and then it's this. Okay. I do think that the Republican Party needs to not be the party of insurrectionists. But I don't think you do that by hand-holding them. I think that having the kind of leadership that Jamie Raskin showed at times, and others on the House manager side showed, but really the energy of AOC, I'm missing the energy of AOC. Stacey Plaskett, Representative Stacey Plaskett was close when she was like, we needed more senators with backbones, which I think is right. But we need the energy of AOC to just be like, we do not negotiate with insurrectionists. This has become the party of insurrectionists. Like, where do you stand? Like, what do you support? The Confederate flag was flown inside the Capitol, the first time it's ever been flown. Like, I need that energy. We need that moral leadership. And you don't really see it, and you certainly don't see it from Nancy Pelosi, who, I don't know what we're protecting anymore. I don't know what we're trying to do. So,
yeah, the Republican Party, you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know what we want from them anymore.
What was the Republican Party before QAnon? Like the Tea Party? Was that good? Was that better? Maybe in some ways. It wasn't a responsible, serious party. They, like, in terms of their actual policies, the Republican Party has been in favor of tax cuts and cutting immigration. And that's really it. I guess dismantling Obamacare is sort of an approach to policy, but it's really just a negative policy. And that's going back way before QAnon. I mean, the Republican Party of the Reagan years, is that what she's talking about? I get that it is better to have two serious parties that can debate each other, but that isn't just a matter of going back to before Trump. They weren't that then. I don't know how we get them to that point. I would argue the only thing I can think of that maybe has a chance is to beat them into submission and cause them to not win any elections for 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
Maybe something will come out of that. Probably not even then, but maybe that's a possibility. And if she gets, if it is about they're the party of insurrectionists and everything, then I hope she understands that that's not going away, that they're going to approach whatever next elections they lose the same way that they did this one. They're trying in states around the country, as we've been covering, to make it harder and harder to vote. Now they have a bill, the House Dems have a bill to enshrine voting rights and all of that stuff, but they're not going to pass that unless they kill the filibuster, and they don't currently seem willing to do that. So she's like complaining about this status quo while presiding over a party that's not willing to do what's necessary to actually change it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there is nothing to get back to. It's time to remake the whole thing. But like this is where we are. We're at the mercy of, can you at least not side with people who want to hang the vice president? That's it. This is the point that we're at. But you're absolutely right. Between the gerrymandering and the ways that the Senate are tilted in the Republicans' favor, the way the Electoral College is tilted in the Republicans' favor, the game is absolutely rigged in their favor, which is why, once again, like dragging the impeachment trial out would have maybe delayed real relief, COVID relief, perhaps, right? But it is definitely what Republicans would have done, shoe on the other foot, because they don't believe in getting anything done except giant tax breaks and destroying any kind of social welfare state that is left. That's it. Yeah. And circus. It's circus, and crapping on poor people. That's it. That's all they do, and preventing anything from moving forward. So it's like, it's hard to know, because like we want to play the circus too, but we also want to, get people hot dogs in the stands. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Look, so that's true. Finally, Francesca, you've been talking about the circus, so I want to show you the clown. I'm just going to put an image up, and I just want your thoughts. If we could go to this Ted Cruz image that was apparently screen capped from a C-SPAN video. What is going on there? I don't know what that is. It's not a mullet exactly. What is it?
Oh, it's definitely a mullet.
I mean, it's mullet. It's too, like, a mullet is sort of a gradual, like that is a right angle. And I feel like nothing about a mullet is technical enough to have a right angle in it.
No, it's definitely a right angle. They started, that's a quarantine haircut. They start in with the buzzer and you're like, okay, well, can you leave? Or maybe it was like not enough time in the recess to finish it off. Just finish it. It looks like he's about to build a dam around his office. He's a beaver, like gathering twigs and branches for the coming floods. New age
mullet. It's possum in the front, beaver in the back. I don't know if you need to remove hair from the back or add hair to the front. Randomize it, honestly. Just start moving hair around. I think that you're gonna end up with something better. Is it possible that he was looking straight into the mirror while they're doing this haircut, and they just decide, well, he can't see the back, so screw him. We're just gonna do whatever we want. Is it one of those things? Like people show the images of like Meghan McCain from The View, and they say her hairstylist clearly hates her, and I don't know anything about that. But is this strike back? Is it possible he got his hair cut in the Capitol building, and those people who work there feel betrayed by a guy who isn't willing to do what's necessary to censure or remove a guy who risked all of their lives by sending a mob in? I don't know. Maybe this is the true insurrection, and it took place on his scalp. Anyway, okay. Let's see what's going on in the audience, and we'll move on to news. Thankfully, not having to do with any of this. Eric, welcome to Tier 1 YouTube membership. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the new badges, which are absolutely awesome. And then some super chats. First was from Chakuseki, who said, I think McConnell ate a spoiled head of lettuce as he was so confused his throat waddle quivered as he voted to acquit yet professed Trump's guilt. It's the worst of all worlds. Stone Eagle Dragon said, cry out to the legions of the brave, time again to save us from the jackals of the street, ride out, protectors of the realm, captains at the helm, sail across the sea of lights, circles and rings, dragons and kings, weaving a charm and a spell. Is that lyrics from a Dragon Force song? I'm not sure, but I liked it. Thank you. Franklin Sharpslicer said, thanks to Brett and Brooke, held game night, so Crunchy Frog and I took a look. How refreshing to have a moment with hardly a DJT or others who torment. Just lazy games, 420 and wine. 'Twas a non-political, a night divine. Back at it, do well, all dragons. Thank you for that, Franklin. Franklin is referring to the Lonely Hearts Valentine's Day stream that Brett and Brooke did last night. Sounds like fun. Ray says, caffeine headaches. Hi, John. Shy by Gemini Dragon here. Your headaches are called rebound headaches. You have to wean yourself off of caffeine. Your headaches won't stop until your body is 100% off caffeine. I learned that from my neurologist. No, thank you, but I haven't really been cutting back to trigger withdrawal. I don't know what it is. I thank you for the invite. I'm seeing in Twitch. I didn't actually get a message about that, but my wife and I went to this live Stranger Things event, which was really awesome. So I was busy in Valentine's. Thank you. A Florida Dragon has a question. Do you think more impeachment charges such as dereliction of duty might have helped?
No.
I mean, maybe. I think maybe it's a little bit easier, but what does that get you? 1? Maybe 2 more? Maybe. He definitely derelicted his duty. Curtis says Pence was accompanied by members of the Secret Service. Under threat, they make a secure connection to their director in the White House. No excuse. Yeah, and you could have had members of the Secret Service come and testify, or you could have had Pence come and testify, or Officer Goodman, or any number of different people. There had to be a way. Let's see. Damon says, genderqueer dragon reporting in. Can I get a shout out for my lovely fiance? Today is our 9-year anniversary, which blows my mind. Every year just keeps getting better and better. Thanks, John and Francesca.
Aw,
happy anniversary. That's awesome. And Lena Peak, hey Lena. Lena says, with all the burgers that Trump eats, I think the cows would have voted to convict.
very true.
That's pretty good. Realan says, for Francesca, McConnell impression, since you didn't give Francesca any credit. I gave Francesca any credit for that. That was a great impersonation. It's not necessarily as good as her Greta, but it's very good. It's up there.
I'm working on it.
And it's good. And finally, the Shenanigans says, John, please explain why Trump won't be charged in an actual court of law. He can, he might. I just don't hold out hopes for any of those things. It's possible. It is certainly possible. Okay, now with that, wait 1 sec. We have a message coming in from Bart about hair. Bart says, my time as an adolescent was during the 80s. As someone who unfortunately grew up in the 80s, that is definitely a mullet from Ted Cruz. He is trying to tap into the party of Reagan with that hairstyle by starting something, and in the middle of the task, you say, I'm done here without completing the task. That is the sensibility of a mullet. That's pretty good. That's more thinking than I think he's ever done, but thank you for that, Bart. Now, let's jump into other news. At the close of last week, the new White House Deputy Press Secretary TJ Ducklo was facing calls for resignation over threatening misogynistic messages that were sent to a female reporter. At that point, TJ Ducklo had been suspended without pay for 1 week, which hardly seemed to match up to the things that were said. Well, now, a few days later, message from the press secretary that we have accepted the resignation of TJ Ducklo after a conversation with him this evening. This conversation occurred with the support of the White House Chief of Staff. We are committed to striving every day to meet the standards set by the president in treating others with dignity and respect, with civility and with a value for others through our words and actions. TJ Ducklo also put out, that's a real name, also put out a statement saying, no words can express my regret, my embarrassment, and my disgust for my behavior. I use language that no woman should ever have to hear from anyone, especially in a situation where she was just trying to do her job. It was language that was abhorrent, disrespectful, and unacceptable. I am devastated to have embarrassed and disappointed my White House colleagues and President Biden. And after discussion with the White House communications leadership tonight, I resign my position and will not be returning from administrative leave. He further said that he is determined to earn back the trust of everyone he let down because of his intolerable actions. Francesca, what are your thoughts on this update?
Well, I'm sure the Daily Wire will provide him with a movie that he can star in and act in, because he's been wronged by the cancel culture. And I am happy to provide it. I mean, look at this. This is exactly what happens. You have to apologize for every little move. She's this is what women have to always be taken care of. I'm trying to do Shapiro. I don't know if I thought
it was pretty good.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have my underwear all the way up the crack, so it's not bunched, and so I think that's how you get the sound.
Show us the.
Hashtag show.
Come on, Ben.
Yeah, show us the Ben undies.
I don't want to finish it.
Look, it's nice that we're back to a White House that actually has some humility, just basic humility. It's saying that you're going to destroy someone coming from inside the White House, that's not good. Don't say that to somebody. Yeah, it was over a romantic relationship, am I right?
Yes, it was over questions that were being asked about a relationship that TJ Ducklo was having with an Axios reporter. And TJ Ducklo was saying that the female reporter who had been assigned the story was only asking because she was jealous of the Axios reporter, and that some man had sex with the Axios reporter that didn't have sex with her. None of this is acceptable. So look, two things I think true simultaneously. One, good. This is, I think, what people wanted, and they did it. And I can't imagine under the previous administration that this would have happened. I mean, Trump stuck more with the wife-beating press guy he had than they did with Ducklo, which is good. That said, yeah, his apology strikes me as, we'll see where he tries to pop up again. And I'm sure he's just trying to protect himself, and that's fine. And by the way, even the thing from the press secretary is we strive to meet the standards set by the president, which is why we knew about this story for a couple of weeks and did nothing until it came out. And even then tried to just suspend him. And when that wasn't enough, only then did we ask for him to resign. That's how we strive to meet the Biden challenge. It's fake. And that's not what you were doing. You were doing what people do, which is you tried to get away with not doing anything until you had to. But that said, they did get him to resign. So huzzah.
Yeah. I thought the whole communications team was all female too.
I had heard that. I mean, I guess I heard that too. I don't know. Maybe he was a late hire, or they were talking about some other subset of it. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, this is
closer to all female now.
Yeah, I'm glad. Look, I think that's important. I think that's good. Hey, standards are important. At the same time, once again, we just got done talking about a party that literally won't condemn a violent insurrection against themselves, against the Republic. So I don't know, we're not playing the same game. That's the other thing. Now, I don't think the answer is to be nah, take no prisoners, no humility, whatever, just blaze forward. That's definitely not the course. But once again, we're in these two different realities. And I'm glad that at least there's some decency left in one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that said, let's move on to our next story. I know I want to replay that. There we go. I was really worried I was going to be starting that with Biden. Biden didn't do that. He's done bad stuff, but not this. Anyway, we've just closed out Valentine's, and people love to share clever Valentines. Our team put up some awesome ones on the Damage Report's Instagram that were very clever. Some people don't really get the point of that though. And now the Los Angeles Police Department is investigating reports that its officers were sharing an offensive image that mocked George Floyd's death, allegedly a photo of Floyd's face with a Valentine's Day card-style caption that said, "You take my breath away." Now, if you are one of the few people in the world who aren't familiar with who George Floyd is or why he died back in May 2020 after he was arrested, and Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin knelt on his neck for a total of 8 minutes and 46 seconds. 2 minutes and 53 seconds of this was after Floyd was unconscious and non-responsive. Chauvin and the other 3 Minneapolis Police Department officers who arrested Floyd have all been fired and are awaiting trial later this year. So George Floyd died as a result of that. That sparked protests across the country about police brutality and the police not caring about the lives or deaths of certain types of people like George Floyd. And so to share this seems to make the point of the people protesting there, Francesca.
I mean, this is disgusting. It's disgusting, and yet it's par for the course. This kind of stuff happens all the time in police departments across the nation, right? And I mean, like, we can talk specifically about the LAPD separately, but I just want to talk generally about there is a through line between what we saw on January 6th and the ways that racist memes and racist posts, like what we saw from the LAPD, are connected. Right, like we know that a huge percentage, a disgusting percentage of people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th were former or current military law enforcement, right? And according to experts, it all comes back to the fact that a lot of the sensitivity training and racial awareness trainings within police departments are insufficient, and that the police brutality cases, the cases of civil rights violations are actually there's never justice in those cases. The BLM movement is right that when you actually have consequences for the brutality, for the death, for the senseless murder of someone like George Floyd, then that trickles back to like the entire culture of police generally, which is a culture that regularly shares racist stuff like this, that dehumanizes Black people, that thinks that it is okay to make jokes like this. So it's all part of the same system of accountability. And if we don't have look, I mean, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. If you don't have basic accountability for something like this, or for the posts, the social media posts that these officers do in private, then you're never gonna have accountability for the murder of someone like George Floyd.
Yep, and they're investigating. LAPD put out a tweet saying they've become aware of allegations that an image was being, you've become aware of it? What, are you like an AI running a robot? It's happening. It's like every word is designed to put distance between them and what their people are doing. Anyway, there are also allegations that the post of the image was authored by a department employee, blah, 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 blah. Our investigation is to determine the accuracy of the allegations while also reinforcing our zero tolerance for anything with racist views. That's what the LAPD chief, Michael Moore, said, vowing that his officers would find my wrath if he confirms that they were circulating the image. And we'll see. Wrath forthcoming, I'm sure. And I don't know, it's like George Floyd died, it's getting on towards a year. And LAPD officers think that it's funny to share that stuff. You know, the officers in Buffalo who brutalized that protester, they ended up getting off. And along the way, when there were even the possibility of charges, they all quit together. Like, these are people that are incredibly resistant to any reform, stick together 100% of the time, and yet seem to really believe that all of the calls for reform are fundamentally unfair. Like, the people sharing that image think, how dare they say there's something here that needs to change? Like, they hold those two positions simultaneously, and that is the issue. You cannot expect them to moderate themselves or them to fix it, because they are the actual problem. There are people that need to be weeded out. This needs to be rebooted from the ground up. And I don't think that this investigation is going to solve it. I don't. I think it's probably going to prove absolutely nothing. But even if they do pull out one person, that doesn't fix a culture that thinks it's funny to joke about people that cops kill.
Yeah, and like, why is the LAPD like being mealy-mouthed with this? Is it because that this happens all the time, and now we're just finding out about one instance of it? Why isn't that tweet just, this is a disgusting tweet and there will be action taken immediately when we find this person? Like, this is not okay. The LAPD, stands in solidarity with the Black community. I don't know, like, say it's not okay to joke about murder. Say anything like that, right? Yeah. But no. It is, again, there's a code of conduct in Senate that we've seen, right? There's a code of, it's like a military conduct among Republicans. They all have each other's backs, they stay in line. And the same thing with the police. And I mean, here we are almost a year into this pandemic. And the most response that we've seen from our government in this year about the pandemic has been in response to demonstrators upset about the murder of George Floyd. Helicopters, police cars, endless brutality on demonstrators. Cool, thanks. These are the priorities, people. This is where we're at. But again, if you root this stuff out, if you hold one police officer responsible, that does trickle down. That does send a message. I do think we can remake these departments. And I think that the call to defund the police, yeah, man, you got too much time on your hands. Why are you sharing memes, bro?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, seriously. And one of the things that there was some success on over the last year's elections, but previous elections too, is bringing in like new DAs and things like that. That will help a little bit. It's not direct embedded change inside of it, but for a position that is often held by people who are incredibly easy on the police, sort of goes along with them and all of that. That is important too, and that has actually been happening.
Yeah, Michael Moore needs to resign. Also, BT Dubs.
Yeah.
Police Chief Michael Moore needs to go. Goodbye.
You can read those tweets, 3 tweets, and have no idea what it's about.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's about George Floyd. I don't know that it's about murder. I don't know that it's about race. I don't know anything. I guess, did they say something about? It doesn't even say that it was racist. I have no idea what it's about based on that. I don't know. Did someone have a virus on their computer? And they're really like ashamed at their lack of cybersecurity. I don't know what these tweets are about.
But sorry. I mean, I realize we've belabored the point, but I just want to say, like, actually, inside police departments, they don't really name racism. They might say racial sensitivity, as I did earlier, or like bias training. But the language of racism, which somehow is seen as racist, even in of itself, that doesn't enter into police language when it should. When we know it should, and we see the consequences of not understanding that racism is a system. Doesn't mean it's you, it means it is a system. And yes, officers of color can also participate in that system. Then we can better understand and tackle it, but they have no language for that. They're the arguably most racist, purveyors, or the purveyors of this racist system have no language for understanding the system that they're part of.
Agreed. Okay, really fast. We're gonna read just a couple of super chats, then move into our last topic of the show. First of all, I want to thank Sukib Designs and Crab Dragon for becoming YouTube members. Thank you for that. Grumpy Soup Dragon and the Shenanigans for becoming level 2 members. Thank you. Enjoy the top 10 list, including the upcoming top 10 things Trump should have been impeached and convicted for, which we're gonna be filming right after the show. It'll be uploaded to the YouTube channel a little bit later on. Logillo. Thank you. And Pards upgraded their membership to tier 3, and we've got our second Q&A coming up soon. So thank you for that. Over on Twitch, Rodney gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you. 420 Rosemary subscribed for the 3rd month. Arland 2 for the 5th. Trev for the 4th. Tumbles for the 3rd. Dino Boyer for the 5th. Thank you for that. Fromius for the 3rd, and says Purple Dragon celebrating 3 months subscribed with my 4-year HRT anniversary today. Love Fantastic Mondays. Thank you for that. Let's see. Top Cat Glass Dragon says we should have all the TYT personalities state what they were doing 19 years ago prior to TYT. Francesca, what were you doing 19 years ago?
Oh God, I'm gonna date myself. What was 19 years ago?
I was in college. I was doing a lot of poli-sci classes in college, I think, and working at an Italian restaurant and riding around on my little motorcycle. It was good times. Good times. 2003. What were you doing?
I was marching in the streets against the Iraq War.
Nice.
Yeah, February 15th. Today was the day that the New York Times called the anti-war movement the second superpower. We shut down all of New York City. I was dancing on a big rig truck. That was fun. I had decked out a whole jacket that said "No to War." I made it all fashion, because anti-war but make it fashion. And yeah, February 15th.
Pictures taken?
I think I have some. Awesome. Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
On cool. The giant, those, the old cameras where some dude has to stand over with a sheet, and it's just look at the bird and poof.
And it burns something.
Yeah.
Burns something. I don't know what somewhere. It is. Something's burned, but anyway. Okay, that's cool. Did you have to stand on the big rig and not move for 45 seconds?
Yeah, it was really hard.
Okay, cool. Okay, now a couple of super chats, and we'll move on to the last story. Freya Dragon says, on the pre-show, you asked why Roger Stone needs bodyguards. Well, it's because Batman's butler wants his clothes back. That's funny. Michelle Conklin says, congrats on your 19th anniversary, TYT peeps. If you were Canadian, you'd be old enough to drink. Well, we're gonna drink either way. Kai Allen says, happy Monday, John, Francesca, and Dragon Squad. Francesca, I love your haircut. Reminds me of Phoebe Cates in Drop Dead Fred. Love that movie.
Thanks.
I don't remember that movie, really.
Oh, it's not good, but Phoebe Cates is great.
Yeah, she's great. Peter Burbeck says the world needs to know, is that Taco Cat on the shelf back behind Francesca's left shoulder? I think people have asked that before. That is Taco Cat, right?
That is Taco Cat. It was the only thing I've ever won at a fairgrounds ever. It was a couple years ago, and the lady gave me an extra turn, and I won it. And I literally shrieked in girl-like joy, like, I won a Taco Cat! Like, so happy.
That sounded like your Ben Shapiro right there. I hope it's dry. Anyway, ew, that's lined up way too much. Okay, anyway, Mrs. Blue from Lower Sioux said, senator in the front, insurrectionist in the back, referring to Ted Cruz's haircut. Thank you for that. Bernie the Kiwi Bird says, Kiwi Dragon here. Hello to Fran and John. Clearly it is a Cruz cut. Yeah. Derek says, is it still bootlicking when we can see how big the lifts in his shoes were by looking at Matt Bates's throat? They're in there. Thanks for all you guys do on TDR and TBR. Take care. Thank you, Derek. Wayne says, kudos to Franny for her TBR show yesterday. Great guest and analysis.
Thanks.
Awesome. Daniel says, since our system is so corrupt, how long do you think until people start taking justice and law into their own hands? Since there is never any from our lawmakers or criminal justice system. I mean, obviously, I'd prefer, the system to actually work and respond to the concerns of the people. That's what I'd like. Jody says, let's see, literally only sending this to hear you say, Matt Gaetz is a tool even the gays won't touch, go TDR. Thank you for the super chat. Not sure about that one, but thank you for the super chat. Not a fan of Matt Gaetz, I'll say that. I approve of that sentiment anyway. Somebody is implying there's something wrong with one of our lights, that it's flickering. Is that why the room is so dark? I haven't noticed any flickering. I think the bulbs are gradually burning out. It's gonna be like an apocalyptic movie where there's no replacements for anything. It just goes until it's done, and eventually I'm gonna be just a voice in a blank space. I don't know.
Very, very Blair Witch. You're just gonna have your little flashlight.
Exciting. Anyway, okay, let's quickly roll through this last story, everyone. Little bit of good news, kind of, on the pandemic, although it's the sort of good news that always feels like the more you talk about it, the more likely it is that good news will be replaced with bad news. But the case numbers are actually dropping. For the first time since November, average new daily coronavirus infections in the US fell under 100,000. It's been months. These figures are well below the average daily infection rate of 200,000 for December and nearly 250,000 in January, which is madness. Just this Sunday, researchers reported 83,321 new infections and still over 3,300 deaths. So as the cases fall, the deaths are falling, although as always, there is a lag on that. So hopefully if it continues in this direction, those deaths will be going down in a few weeks too. And as of right now, the US has recorded more than 27.5 million virus cases and more than 484,000 deaths. Those are the actual ones we know about, 27.5. A significant chunk of the entire population actually got tested to show they have it. God only knows how many others have had it to this point. So a little bit of good news, Francesca.
I guess. I mean, what are we doing about it to make sure that those numbers stay down? It's like we just go with the wind. Well, yay, today they're down, tomorrow they might be up. Who knows? We're not gonna do anything different. Like, it's insane. Australia had like 20 cases and everyone's in lockdown. Everyone is in lockdown. They had 20 cases. Like, I would give anything for 20 cases and an actual serious lockdown. It's maddening. 83,000 new infections. That's not good.
No,
That's terrible. That's terrible. Anyway,
it is terrible. It is terrible.
The other thing I just want to say is, like, look, I do think there should be a criminal case brought against the former president for killing and almost 500,000 people. Seriously, like we know how many of those deaths could have been prevented. So many of those deaths.
40%, according to Lancet. But yeah, we might talk about that a little bit during our top 10 list in a bit. But
yes.
Let me give you a little bit more mixed good news and bad news. So good news, the US is now administering more vaccine doses every day, up to an average of about 1.7 million. I believe that's over the past week. So we have ramped that up. Now, 1.7 million would still take a very long time to vaccinate everyone. The downside is that as of right now, that number might not be sustainable because vaccine supplies aren't meeting the way that they're being rolled out. So for instance, in last week in California, where we are, they announced that they would soon become one of just a handful of states to expand vaccine access to people of any age with underlying health issues or severe disabilities. But California's already used 72% of its doses, and there's some shortages in some areas. So for instance, here in LA, we've turned a couple of places like I think Disney's gonna be, but Dodger Stadium and the Forum are these max vaccination places. But Dodger Stadium had to shut down over the weekend because they ran out of doses. Mayor Eric Garcetti said that the city received just 16,000 doses last week, roughly a day's worth. 16,000 is like 2 blocks in LA. That is not enough. We've lost thousands and thousands of people just inside of this county, more than a lot of states. And it's just they're not producing enough of the vaccine, or if they are, they're not distributing it. So it's good that they're going through the ones they have, but they have to keep a steady flow or we're not gonna be able to maintain that. And even maintaining it isn't good enough. 1.7 million shots a day is not good enough if you wanna end this pandemic in the next 3 or 4 or 5 months.
Oh man, my kingdom for a national healthcare plan. I just want it plan. Hey guys, let's shut down all the military bases and just turn them into hospitals. Let's wind down our nuclear sites and make them into vaccination centers. I think that would be safe, maybe. The point is that our nation is completely backwards when it comes to priorities. And the fact that COVID is hanging on and that there's some reports that are like, well, maybe this is just gonna be life now, which is really painful to think about and really hard. But at the same time, what a great wake up call. We know climate change is just life now, and we've got to get that under control too. Maybe we should redirect our national priorities and our funds into things like healthcare, into things like stopping climate change, into renewable energy, et cetera. Like our priorities it's just so laid bare what we need to do. And it's gonna take a long time, it's gonna take a lot of work. But man, it'll be worth it because we'll be able to socialize and be with one another and all be healthy.
Yeah, maybe if we start to recognize that Russian tanks and Muslim terrorists are a little bit less likely to kill us than the climate changing and the ever increasing number of variants of COVID. We'll see. A little bit of progress, but still obviously a long way to go. And that is all the time that we have for our full show. Francesca, as always, thank you. Where can people watch the latest episode of your show?
You're so sweet. You can watch it on my YouTube channel, Franny Fio, and then follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Franny Fio, or listen to the Bitchuation Room podcast wherever you get your podcasts. All the place.
All over the place. And for our tier 2 and tier 3 members on YouTube, we're gonna be recording our top 10 list in just a little bit. That'll be up on the channel a little bit later on. So if you want access to that, you can either start a membership or upgrade your membership. You'll get access not only to the upcoming top 10 list, but also the 8, I believe, that we've done before, a mix of political and non-political ones. And that said, everyone, stay tuned later on today for the TYT 19th anniversary celebration. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait to do that. Coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So definitely look forward to that. And until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.